We're having some technical issues. Testing. It sounds good. It's channel 3. We are on channel 3. We're testing. Okay, now it's working. Now it's working. Now it's working, yes. Channel 3 for English and Polish. And sorry for screaming into the mic. Let me repeat the question. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's important for all of us to hear each other and understand each other. So when we have a very high turnout and the Orban has lost its powers in Hungary by means of the elections, I wonder, because since you are researching, that you're the expert on Hungary, so how the elections strengthen democracy and the participation, how it strengthens the democracy, and what does it say about the present election behaviors? So first of all, thank you so much. I will try to keep it short because I already had a chance to speak to you in the morning. But first, I would like to start with the context. So in the world, we have two paradigms clashing, two huge thoughts questioning whether it's important for the participation to be high in the elections and the other not. From political men is the source that can tell us that why people who are not interested in politics, why would they take part in the elections? People don't go to the elections, they don't go for voting because they have no reason to go. So what Lipset said, what was worrying for the Americans, what they were worried about is that there are jumps, there are spikes in the turnout. Sometimes it's 80, sometimes 90, sometimes it's 10%. This is one story. Whether it's worth to participate in the elections or not, I could tell you how it changes historically. But the second paradigm of this, it's the force. People are forced to vote, like in Australia. In Australia, from 95 to 96% of citizens going to elections. It's connected with because the institutions in the political science are important. It's called preferential alternative voting. And all this together creates an argumentation among the Australians that they all have to go to voting. It's like an obligation. So it's like the economists should be aware of the economic situation in the entire country, being employed or unemployed. They all have to know everything about the kangaroos, what the kangaroos want to do and what they don't want to do. So all these paradigms clash, and we in Europe are the ones who treat it as a law. So I would like to quote a research that I said in the morning on 120,000 Europeans. It was called European Social Survey. We did this in 2012 and in 2022. And we have arrived at two unexpected results from the four models that we have been researching there. Liberal model was strengthened, not weakened. And surprisingly, those who lost in the political elections support the liberal model the most, not the populist model or the direct model or whatever the other model might be. And when we started digging deeper, which can be important for our discussion, who is right? Adam Przeworski is correct in thinking, and coining the best definition of democracy, namely democracy is institutionalized insecurity, uncertainty. You know what the rules are, but you don't know what the score will be. And there is a fantastic book from 2005 that I was testing it all over the world by Anderson and others. By Loser's Consent, that's the title of the book. We are not aware of the fact that democracy concerning the elections is still there because the losers agreed to that, consented to that. So what we know about the post-war elections in Europe, from 20 to 25% of the governments have the majority support when they create governmental coalition. In Poland, from 1988, not even one government, not even one president had truly the majority support. Those who do not go for elections, who are apathic, and those who vote for the parties that are losing the elections are in majority. So what journalists sometimes are telling us that elections is the festivity of democracy, they're totally wrong. For 89% of all the societies in Europe, the day on Monday morning, it's a traumatic experience. Only 30% are happy, 70% are disappointed with everything that happened. 50%, 40% in Poland didn't even go to the elections because they don't even care about politics. And the remaining 30% voted for the parties that will never be able to create the government. That's why in the participation democracy, regardless big participation or not, it's important to focus on the losers and provide them with what Przeworski is saying, so that in 4 years' time, in the same institutionalized system, with the same rules of the game, they will have another opportunity to win this time. And then the second story, why are they not rebelling against it? But please don't repeat that any further. They don't know that they are in the majority. Most of us, we live in the conviction that after the elections, the government has the majority support. It doesn't. None of the Polish governments, not even our present president, doesn't have 30 million people who have the right to vote. Only 400,000 voted for them. That doesn't mean he didn't become a legally president, but 20 million did not vote for him for various reasons. And by the time we accept this fact and adapt it in our daily activities and the activities of the institutions that try to deal with the democracy, this is something what we are experiencing with democracy of elections. And my last comment, and let me give the floor to others because my boss will switch off my mic in a second. Of course, discussing the election participation, maybe we'll be talking about different forms of participation later on. If we are liberal Democrats and we want the Orbans of this world to be marginalized in our political life, it's not about mobilizing ourselves, but it's about selective mobilization. How to do that? So to choose those who are educated, rationalized, clever, smart, are rational, they are responsible for the society and the country. This is a kind of lip service connected with the ideology, but that's the truth. And maybe what I would be in favor is that what I see, what I observe in the new projects, we talk about the innovation of democracy, about sorting, going back to the fantastic experiments in Florence where the ruling was chosen randomly and not with the wisdom of the sovereign. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have just heard that was an act of methodologizing democracy, and of course switching to random elections is a little bit risky, but it's good to know that the ultimate result of elections is not a majority choice. Elections, this democratic tool, is accompanied by some problems related to the representation, deficits of representation, or a sense of not being represented. And now I will try to zoom on it so that different parts of participation can be used. Now my question to Krzysztof Izdebski. Fundacja Batorego has been supporting local initiatives in rural areas and joint ventures. You also collect the related data. So my question is, and let me ask you for a brief answer, how good is the situation in Poland when it comes to the possibility of the residents of Poland participating in democracy? Yeah. Now we can hear you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Good evening. I am supposed to be brief, but that's difficult because participatory democracy or participation has many forms. What I will be talking about briefly is a reflection on a survey that Fundacja Batorego carried out. We called it the Index of Daily Local Democracy. Democracy that takes place on a daily basis between every 4 or 5 years whenever elections are held. And we believe that this is the moment when people can but do not need to trust you or democratic institutions. Equally important is the fact that are the methods or tools of participation which to some extent are institutionalized, which means that they are based on some legal regulations or institutions, local governments, but this civil activity to a large extent, and we mustn't forget that, especially when we complain that the residents are not involved, they don't go to vote, but when someone builds a production plant, then you can mobilize. If something is wrong in your child's school, then you can mobilize. If you do not agree with what politicians are doing, then we go to the streets. We can get together. So the willingness, be it in the streets in the form of a large demonstration or something on a micro scale in your child's school, this is also a form of civil involvement and belief that you have agency, that because when you go out in the street, sometimes you may think that you may feel that you can influence reality, even if that faith is really hopeless. Let me go to the results of our report. It is a good thing that the Polish chief statistical data gathers information every 2 years from local governments, information on different parts of forms of participation, and also information about how local authorities inform the residents about other activities. Ania asked about the result for Poland. On an index between 0 and 100, the average is 42, but in some places it's 70, 80%, much higher than the average, which also shows that a lot depends on the political culture, on trust and a sense of agency, because municipalities small and big, in the north, in the south of the country, they fall into the same regulations. The question is how they use them, because people can partake in consultations, in participatory budgets on different levels. For example, on the level of villages, and it's really interesting how traditional democratic methods are used, oftentimes discussed in the context of Switzerland, but for decades in Poland, people in rural areas have also been involved in many participatory activities. But it's a question about how open the councillors are. Interestingly, we are in a town hall, how councillors participate and connect with the residents, not only before elections. It's not about informing. Local authorities try to be increasingly transparent and provide access to information about their decision making. Here the scale is more or less at 65%. It is much worse, the situation is much worse when the government, the local government, does not listen. They encourage people to take part in consultations. In 2022, 20% of Polish residents, 20% of local authorities did not provide any consultations, but people feel that unfortunately this never translates into the decision-making process. And thank you very much for presenting me in such a beautiful way, because sometimes I have a dilemma when I talk to people, to social organizations, when I want to get them involved, but I also know that they will have a headache from banging their heads against the wall, because they will be willing to get involved, but they will be refused. Let's remember that social consultations are held after hours. It's an effort. So then it turns out that nobody has listened to them. So lack of information feedback is a real problem. So I understand that maybe my idea has been refuted, but I would like to know why, rather than that someone has totally disregarded me. Another interesting thing is that we haven't seen a difference between rich and poor girls. It's not about access to resources, but about political culture. This is worth emphasizing. As Professor Markowski said about the innovations of democracy, we often come up with very complicated participatory tools, which are at the same time very expensive. We do not need to invest a lot of money in this. What we need is trust, partnership, and openness. And last but not least, yes, I can see that I need to speed up. I think that what we need in this context to use the participation mechanisms in a better way, that is to provide some standards, minimum standards, so that you can understand what a specific authority expects from me and how they will reply. Second thing is institutionalizing impact, tools which force the authorities to respond. In the Polish law, these are some official complaints which are legally, where legally you are bound to respond to people's requirements and complaints. And most importantly, a change in the logic of governance, change into co-governance.
Thank you very much. Yes, it beautifully broadened our topic. So we are talking about the central issues with the democracy and participation. I could ask you a lot of new additional questions in one of the working groups. Just a moment ago, we would talk about the issues with implementation, realization of the results of the participation. How are they channeled? How when they were formulated in the social participation, and how they are translated into political decisions. A special format has been created for social participation, local government council, local government panels. These panels are treated as the introduction to social panels. While this format, why have you worked on this format of three-party dialogue or multiple format of dialogue? Why do you believe it's better than the social panels that already exist? Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for the organizing this entire event. It's the normal path, so quote unquote, so to speak, from the direct elections or to execution. Then this is translated into the activities of the governments or legal acts. That's the normal situation. And everywhere in the Western democracy, we see that the legitimization, the output, is not convincing most of the citizens. There are reasons behind that. It would go too far to describe all that. That's the basic pattern. We have worked on the local government development panels. And the central element of those panels, these are not randomly chosen citizens, but these are different interest groups, functional groups from the society, because we are not a society of units that live next to each other. We are the society of plurality that organizes itself in parties, organizations, and initiatives. So the idea here is that all these different points of view of the society and the perspectives on political issues, to bring them to the basic consensus. If there are issues connected with the town development, city development, or building an outpatient clinic, or finding mobility development projects, in the pluralistic society in which we live in, this is a specific kind of society where there are strictly defined groups that can be in conflict with each other, but also they have a different political potential, political power. Another potential has the bank, and another one has a small social initiative. But at the same time, democracy is promising to everyone that they will have equal opportunities, equal access and impact on political decisions. And we all very well know that it is not the case. If we wish to compensate this situation and find the balance, and this is our proposal. So before something is legislated upon, before it gets to the city council or municipality council, we wish to present the position, the perspective of different organizations, civil society. We want them to be able to to present their perspectives, discuss that, and present it with freedom, and be able to reach a basic consensus. And it should be the basis for freedom in local governments. If we only have randomly chosen persons who have no point of reference to a given area in the pluralistic society, usually it gets somewhere on the shelf, and then it ends its work. So it is a supplement of the representative democracy. So it's the basic difference between these two. We have practiced this with our citizens, and they really joyfully, with eagerness, participate in that. I remember one time we had a panel on food and feeding and nutrition, and the cost of this was 8,800,000. And I'm an auntie from NGO. This is something absolutely crazy for me. So nothing was done because it was parked somewhere on the shelf. And 1 in 10 cases of our local development panels, we had 5 cases in Eastern and 5 cases in Western Germany. A small town in Western Germany, they just wanted to work on their health infrastructure and medical care. The problem is both in Western and Eastern Germany. And this group unanimously said, because they need to have a unanimous decision, that's the obligation of our local development panels. So there was unanimously they presented to the city council their idea, and they did not accept, the city council did not accept this decision to build the outpatient clinic. And then immediately we had the application for the referendum, because that's the natural thing for using the political tools. And in the referendum there was a quorum reached 3 times. So again, this idea was presented to the city council again, and the one person who was again did not just show up during the voting. And thanks to that, the referendum made it possible to accept the new legal act. The outpatient clinic was built. And then again, there were some people in opposition, because there was one group in the city council that was in favor and one group that was against. And they believed it should be a private outpatient clinic. So they created another referendum, voting with the help of the adequate tools. It was also, there was a question about the loan for the outpatient clinic, and again somebody did not show up in the city council, so they were given the loan, and the outpatient clinic was awarded as the model health care and outpatient clinic. So the model of deliberation of different groups of interest that led us to a consensus, was very transparent, was in a very clear process. So we led it to the politicization of the problem, where the people raised their voice, where the people could be heard, the political voice could be heard. It was the consequence of this, positive consequence, of course, of this local government development panel. In my opinion, our political system needs to be continued to develop, because the inequalities are so great and the influence on the politics is so great. So being unhappy with politics, people continue to say, this is not my democracy, I'm unable to do anything, I'm not empowered enough. It's happening here and now. You participated in this, maybe not directly, maybe it wasn't a direct democracy, but you participated in a long discussion, 4 long days, you reached the consensus, you have the agreement, then you have an indirect influence. With 80 million Germans in our country, it's not possible to have a direct influence on everything, but you can at least have indirect influence. Our surveys show that, our research shows that. Those who want to, let me give you a Frankfurt example. When we had the local development council, in this council it is unanimously agreed, but the process is continued. In Frankfurt, the debate was very controversial. I remember sitting here, and when I heard, the audience was applauding. other political parties, they presented their position. So about the area next to Słubice, Słubice Road. So what is they wanted to agree on how they're going to manage the area on both sides of the bridge between Frankfurt and Słubice. And then the election started. The mayor moved to Potsdam, and then the second mayor was even the member of this local development panel. But what are you going to do with that? There is the bill, there is the legal ad, there is a resolution for you to continue the process, continue the project. And this is showing us the problem, because we have many mayors who do not belong to any parties, who are not members of any party. They presented themselves as a beautiful independence of the party, but this takes us to the situation where there is no empowerment in the city. There is not any strong group. We have many, so to speak, party-less mayors, but they have to find the majority with whom they can do the politics. Not being a member of any party is not helpful here. Even those who sit in the parliament in different political groups, it's also important for them to create majorities, to get together, because otherwise we will not be able to effectively implement a decision. I'm also a member of the political party. You are aware of it. I publicly critically expressed myself about that party, but despite that fact, I have critical approach to that. Parties need to exist so that we can get our voices together and run our politics effectively, but it has to be prepared well, so that but it has to be taking place in a protected environment. Things we say, how we say, shouldn't be taken to the public. The results, the decisions, of course, yes, but not specifically saying what people said, so that people are not criticized in the society. Trying to intertwine the participation democracy, the interest of the groups, members of the local government, economic local governments, organizations, civil society, that can operate and talk and discuss in a protected space, in a protected environment. Those who were participating in the panel, that was a very long and time-consuming panel, but nonetheless they were very happy, and that we were not so far away from each other with our ideas. If we provide time to discuss what we want to achieve, where are we going, what's the direction we want to take, it's much easier to reach the consensus, find the middle ground, than on paper where we have no implications, we don't see the intentions standing behind it. So this is what I support.
Thank you very much. So now we've got the issue of connecting civil activity and the people who work in this representative democracy. So there's different positions, different views, and quite often we have a situation, as mentioned here, that the AfD party responded. No, the AfD does not talk about interest, but they said over our heads. If they had talked about their interest, but they said they talked about things over our heads, disregarding us. So these are attempts at arguing even with partners like the AfD. And now I would like to ask Anna Holper to tell us more about the procedures, because we have some deficits, we have problems who represents what interests. Now you are taking part of in moderating such processes, so you know also that there's different participation formations, that different individuals come up with the final solution in the tedious process of moderation or negotiations. So what is the what guarantees success here? This is a very disciplinary method of switching off the mic. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I think that this is about unfortunately, the lady is too far from the mic. She needs to speak to them straight to the mic. Thank you. So, it's a bit difficult for me because when I look at my panel, the other panel members, I should be speaking in a different position. Look, it's very important that we are in a confrontational arrangement because we cannot have a conversation because we are not looking at each other. See, this is some kind of a toy. The seating arrangement, if you cannot absorb the content or communicate the content to other people, a problem arises. We would have to find a compensation element here. So we have created some distance, and so the initial relations will not be good. So to wrap it up, the result of processes and the methodology on the results is huge. So the instruments are very important for the result of for the lack of results, for not fulfilling the expectations. I'm trying to show you selectively the combinations of opinions which I think are important and which are rules that stem from academic research, which may prove helpful. My own experience in Poland and in international peace negotiations, I have learned many of these participatory formats. This is what I would like to share. On the one hand, we should not put a stop to some kind of solutions, but always to deliver a good result. The first rule, very important one, the participation format should not be politicized, should not become political. Rather, they should be phrased in the communication so that optional doable solutions should be found. So we always need to find an issue that is of importance to a specific group or a specific location. It's a shared problem of the entire community. And groups or individuals represented there are to some extent, they depend to some extent on the problem being solved or not being solved. And the result needs to be doable, a doable result, and many factors are at play here. For example, power of the authorities, the city, but also the residents need to be willing to solve the problem. So the sources of power are important here. Oftentimes, politicians or the administration are dependent on the residents. So the selection of a good subject is of key importance here. So a resident can participate not only in a specific as part of a specific format, but if someone fails to deliver, they should also be penalized for it. So the interest should always have some kind of sanction associated with them. Another issue is, how do we go away from some polarization? How not to put a stop? You may have heard about a method where we cannot veto something or anything. So you can say no, yes, but differently, but suggest something else. So if someone puts a stop, they need to provide an alternative solution. So if someone puts a stop to a specific solution, they say no, but I have a different solution to propose. So you need to cooperate in a constructive, productive way rather than a destructive way. So it's not no because, but I say I am putting this on the table as my idea, and in our efforts to make a decision, there are some more procedures that are necessary, but consensus also needs to be achieved so that everyone can affect the final result. Some people say, okay, we will veto it. It's not a good idea to cooperate with them, because veto is a no-no here. So a dialogue should always be constructive. It should not be an ideological or a political struggle. So on the working level, it should always lead to a solution. And the third thing that has been touched upon today, anyone who has legitimized power in a specific system, they get involved in a process, and they also need to have a sense of agency. So we have individuals that we exclude, and if we exclude these people, they will put stops to our initiatives. They will be against them because someone has undermined their competence, so they will put a stop to things because they have the power to do it. For example, in Frankfurt, there are some I'm sure that there are some excluded groups, because they are everywhere. Regardless of the geography, you need to reach them and include them. Individuals who will later on have to implement a project, say present it to the authorities, for example the mayor, since the beginning, if it is possible, they should be participate in the process, but also they should not feel that someone is trying to take away their competences from them. The question is it possible to take some process-related obligations? So someone someone undertakes to take part in a council, as Ms. Schwan has said, but whatever the outcome, that person needs to follow it through. Okay. I don't know if I should be the one to answer this question. I'm not sure if I should take the floor now. How do we streamline these processes? Let me just relate to it briefly. Firstly, if we want something positive, we have some justification, and this justification is an opportunity to meet. And if we cannot meet, do not manage to meet, so I'm thinking, what is good for the city of Frankfurt? There's things that you can agree on, and the representatives of the administration need to be present. But in the case of Frankfurt, the director of the construction department never wanted that. He always had an alternative vision, and he would never participate in an effective way. If someone does not want anything specifically, then it's really difficult to force them to do that.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you if you want to comment on that very shortly, because I haven't said what about the person who joined us here in the panel on the far right and on the far left, but these are also important voices that you would like to hear. Do our panelists would like to comment something? We were trying to show the spectrum of the participatory democracy. I have one reflection. I believe it's important, and Professor also mentioned it, but AFD, it's not a unique organization or a political tendency only for Germany. Also in Poland, we are facing right-wing and populist tendencies, also in the world as well. But there was a lot of hope now in our hearts when Orban lost the elections in Hungary. But it's very important to say in this technical political discussion, we try to be also very specific in our comments that we as Democrats, we are a bit losing the terminology for talking about participatory democracy, because there are populist parties who also refer that not politicians, not the experts, we the people, let's do the referendum. These are the slogans that they are proclaiming. We as the Democrats, in their narration, they present us as the opponents of democracy, where we show some nuances. When we go deep, more granular, go into more details, we're showing the cooperation is important, not only just be the resemblance of the voice of people. It's the same when we talk about hate. We are the censors. We are not protecting the freedom of speech, but we are censoring the freedom of speech. Of course, this conflict cannot be solved right now, but when I speak to different people in Poland and all over the world, we are losing a little bit the credibility because of the fact that the language of democracy and deliberalization and participation of the citizens in the ruling at the moment is the participation of the populist groups, and I believe that it can be quite problematic for us, and we must be aware of that. Yes, I believe that's something that both in Germany and in Poland is observable, that the language of liberal state of law is used by the populist side, and it's done quite effectively. So now I would like to hear the voice of our spotlights, Carsten Herzberg from the Mitmach FV Society, so active with us, and Alexandra Markova from Ukraine, who came to us from Warsaw. Of the Freedom Day Alliance, and it's not about discussing specific horizons, but maybe look at some contextual factors that are typical to your environment when you talk about disinformation and disorganized groups, difference in rural and urban areas, or structural differences, and then also combining this with the issues of participation? Are they making it easier or promote them? Alexandra, can you say a few words about this information? Are you going to speak English or you're going to try in Polish, right? Yeah, you can speak in Polish, that's fine. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexandra and I have the pleasure to represent the 24th August Polish NGO that supports dialogue and support among young people, both in Ukraine and abroad. Participatory democracy can exist on condition that the citizens, especially the young ones, can engage in the public life based on the trustworthy and credible formations. But what we observe today, we see how fragile this foundation is. That's why we are working on underpinning and strengthening the ideas and the visions of democratic future. We believe that young people play an important role in its shaping. 3 weeks ago, we started a project, Hatred Observatory, supported by the European Commission, supported also with the help of Battery Foundation, where the Polish social and the Ukrainian social media are being observed to document the widespreading disinformation and hate. What is especially worrying us here is the presence of harmful content and how widespread they are. We see how the information is created on anonymous channels and then goes to the mainstream of social media and then increases the hatred among people, and in some cases even physical abuse towards the Ukrainians in Poland. It shows us clear mechanisms of manipulated narrations. They are not contained only in the internet. They influence the behavior of citizens in the real world. We identify the differences in how similar events are being commented on in the Polish media and the Ukrainian area, especially concerning the delicate issues. These inconsistencies make it difficult to understand what the true situation is and can deepen the conflicts inside the society. All this influences participatory democracy, where there is the saturation of disinformation and hate. The citizens are not able to participate in social life with their full awareness and significance. They are shaped by false information. Public debate is polarized and the process of the democratic decision making is weakened. So our main goal is not only to document such phenomena but also bring them to the light, increasing responsibility and building much more transparent and responsible information society. Without the access to responsible information, democracy cannot function as the way it should.
Thank you very much for this insight into the work of your NGO, and it also shows how important NGOs and what they do are. And this is some kind of view on disinformation, but I would like to ask the director if we could carry on for 10 or 15 minutes because we started a little bit later. Okay, 10 minutes is our time slot. So let's see. Okay, now we will so then we will discuss things in the corridors of this beautiful town hall. And Kasper, what is your perspective on that subject? How can participation operate, because you have this participation in the name of your organization. Well, thank you very much for having invited me here. It's really great that this Polish-German meeting can be held on this subject. As an NGO, we do not have many opportunities to meet our friends from Poland and also representatives of the academia. Thank you very much for the interpretation, and I understand that this is some kind of a challenge here. Mitmachen e.V. is a small association from Potsdam, but we operate across Brandenburg. We are involved in a project called the Bridges of Democracy, where young people starting at the age of 15 are supported by our organization. We let them operate, but also making them more aware that they have some possibilities of operate. I myself represent this a teaching perspective on participation. We have also been active in Frankfurt for years. We support schools where the students come from impoverished homes. It's important to be present in such places. And what has already been said here, we talked about participation, and we also need places outside of places like the one where we are now. Where we ask a question: why participation? Why are we involved in participation? We hope that perhaps this will underpin democracy, freedom-related liberal democracy that supports human rights. And we hope that participation will support democracy. Say, for example, participatory budgets, as we have it in Frankfurt and also in Poland and in many locations in Brandenburg. This is a great thing that the town hall makes it available for all the residents. All the residents can decide on how specific sums of money is going to be channeled, say for recreation or for a pavilion where young people will meet. This is a great thing for when all the residents can cast their votes, and the projects with the biggest number of votes are subsidized with the money. And Fundacja Batorego also covers this subject, and we thought that this was a great idea because this is something that is against the narration of right-wing extremists. I can support a project like this as best as I can and see how next year this specific project will do. So we have this tangibility of agency. So how do you think? What do you think about this kind of civil participation where the results are tangible? Do you think that this is a tool for saving democracy against rightist extremists? The answer is no, or it is not enough. What we need are some chains of reaction. I do not believe that one participation instrument can save our democracy. I believe in chains of reactions, in chains of efficacy. We have a game in Frankfurt where a fictitious participatory project is the subject of a conceptual game. Interestingly, participation is combined with education, where we show what it has to do with democracy. So there's this teaching touch in the form of a debate, and perhaps then participation will be stronger. Of course, you can enter schools with such programs. This is something beyond a theory. In Frankfurt, we have managed to introduce it. So we have entered schools, and this is an example of methods, participation methods or educational methods related to participation. Of course, rightist populism is our problem. This requires participation, and it requires working against disinformation and negotiations, as mentioned here, so that we can save democracy. That much on my part. As a practitioner, Mr. Junghans is our host today. We would love to continue it, but this year a stop has been put to many projects that we have put forward, including Frankfurt. So, Deputy Mayor, I would like to talk to you not only about politics or money, but also about the communication channels that are possible, so that I can enter a dialogue with it. We not always want money. Sometimes we want different things. Frankfurt and the other places in Brandenburg need dialogue.
So it may be interesting for our young listeners. That's true that in our situation, our federal program for supporting such participation models has just cut their budgets. NGOs and associations receive less money, but the form of financing is very important for the development of participatory democracy. So lack of financing for small partners and NGOs are a bit of an issue, and maybe unequal distribution of the budgets leads to protest, discontent. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 15 minutes left to have a discussion with you. We would like to give you the opportunity to say a few words. Maybe we can gather together some questions and say something. You could comment, maybe you have some questions. Are you tired? Do you still have the willingness and the power to ask some questions? Good morning. Thank you for this. I have a question for the professor. For the panels, the development panels. So if they are not randomly chosen people, that these are the groups of interest that are directly connected with the problem. Who is choosing them? I hope there isn't an objective truth, but maybe there is something that who has access to that debate. So does it mean that maybe this is not congruent with the idea of democracy? Maybe it is the higher more intense participation outside the institutions chosen in the elections, but they are still people at the top level. They are already associated in some organizations. So what about the people that were said. So in this effect, maybe in this way the populists have the arena to play this game. I truly believe that participatory democracy can be the answer to the populism, but it has to be truly participatory. And I'm wondering that in this model, when we are not drawing the lots or randomly choose, this participatory democracy is really there. Or maybe it will go the other way and make things worse. So this is the question about the effectiveness of participatory democracy. Okay, we are gathering questions. So is there any other person who would like to comment or ask the question? I don't come here, maybe not necessarily with the question, but I would like to refer to the previous panel. Why have I decided to come to this event and represent it as the representative of the Power of the Youth Association? I would like to draw attention to the fact that many young people are not interested in democracy. They are not interested in politics, and they are not interested in the things that are influencing their lives. What they practice, they are racist, they are xenophobic, and despite the fact that behind our eastern borders there are children, young people, adults who in Ukraine are worried whether they are nearest and nearest going to survive another day. This is very up to date today to make people realize, the whole generations, not only young people, how important it is to be aware of the validity of talks about democracy and the freedom of states. If we do not discuss that from the very beginning, from the early stages of development, we will not raise the generation that is sensitive to the pain of others, because that's most important, especially in the context of war conflicts. If we were not aware, conscious of what is happening to them, like the situation in Ukraine or the present situation at the Iranian border and other military conflicts, I believe that our society would be completely different. And today, making young people aware how they should communicate with each other, how diplomacy is important, how democracy is important in avoiding military conflicts is very important. That's why I came here, because if we are not going to discuss that openly from the basic human level, I don't think we'll be able to bring up young generations who are aware of the problem. Thank you for being able to. My name is Aleksander Napita from the Power of Youth organization.
Well, thank you very much for this very important voice on how to win over young people for politics and political debate. It is not about deepening the gap between young people and politics. Thank you very much for contributing to our discussion. This is also an appeal to people who are responsible for education, but also an appeal to politicians. Okay, so that was a comment. Are there any other questions? Because if not, then we would like the panel members to answer the question that has been asked. Who would like to take the floor first? or answer the question or just to respond to it. Anna will go first, because I also have a question to Professor Schwann. I would like, well, in this close-knit group, we are people who support democracy, and when I look at us, we are a bubble, and I'm trying to look outside of the bubble, and I can see that there's some issues that we haven't discussed. We will not be introducing them to this specific discussion, but Mr. Markowski, during the morning session, told us about the interesting forms of democracy. And so I am asking myself, do we need such formats? Do we need formats as part of which we will be speaking very strictly about the functional dimension of democracy, be it liberal or not liberal democracy, that we all want? So do we all agree? For example, a better decision-making process, maybe some clear-cut borders, cutting off people who do not want to work for our system. So my question is, some people are liberal, some are autocrats and so on, but how can we move away from these political forms of thinking, and let's ask ourselves, what do we all want as a society or societies? What kind of decision we all want to be made? We do not want decisions that put a stop to our momentum. You do not need to be an autocrat to make bad decisions. Maybe we need authorities. Maybe we need authoritative representatives, people who enjoy some authority. Otherwise, the democracy is slipping away from us. Maybe this is about finding the common denominator, because we need to agree on some fundamental things. We need to come up with what we all want, so that we all can coexist in a better way. So, we won't be able to discuss these issues in 3 minutes. Still, I think that the most important thing is that ours is a diverse society. Let's put it this way. So there are no leaders who know what their nation wants. It's like the emperor. What the emperor said, this is not the representative democracy that we strive for, but the other things that you have mentioned, and that is transparent divisions, and so we have people who want democracy, we have people who do not want democracy. I'd be cautious here. Let's talk about inclusiveness, because inclusion is about convincing people about a specific format that goes with respect in approaching other people, and the justification, putting forward arguments, and that respect and the acknowledgement of another person's opinions is very helpful. We all should be always included, and some are constructively actively included in the process. In a place like Frankfurt or in other locations, this is what we should strive for. So there's people who distance themselves, they do not have any theoretical knowledge about democracy because they don't have to. But those who are a little bit, put themselves a bit aside, we need to approach them, talk to them, put forward the arguments, but we do not need any legal regulations. You need to be included, or this person must not be included. When we had these civil panels, we need to have people who identify themselves with the process that they are participating in. This is some psychological logic. So not legal enforcement, but that person's identification with a specific issue. Well, we need good moderation. A process of moderation, and the moderator, who is a very important person in the process. You need to have a good way of having a discussion so that all the participants are treated seriously or feel that they are being treated seriously. So in this process, this identification is very important also with respect to the administration, because officials need to understand the problems, and the person from that person did not, that we mentioned here, said we should not discuss about it with the residents because we officials know it better. This is not the kind of people that we need. We need, of course, professionals, because we will tackle the tasks that will come up from cooperation. So we need political competence. We need of officials. We need professional councillors, and we have had some surveys in Germany which say that parliamentary democracy should best be replaced by expert democracy. When you look at this, all those pseudo-experts are politically motivated to act. Of course, you can be an expert who enforces some political issues. It all takes time. Let me give you an example. The first city that had a council like this, we had an employer, we had trade unions, they were pulling the same strings because it was about good jobs, but others, they protected the ambience. They said, we don't care about good jobs, we want to protect the ambience. So it was about some plants that were were supposed to use there or not, and we had a real row, and nobody discussed because either side wanted to veto the other side's proposal, and the representatives of the good jobs we had an individual who did not have the professional knowledge, and so someone would say, we're talking about biodiversity, these plants that you work with are no good here, so we do not give up on your good jobs, but we do not abandon good ambience or climate either. But some people who wanted to protect some plants, and they said yes for biodiversity because it can be underpinned in new structures, but not in existing production plants. So we had biodiversity in new ones. It was about some cement on the ground. So functionally, we had biodiversity as the main idea, and we were looking for a compromise on how to introduce biodiversity in the production plant's extension. So it was about finding the right terms, notions that would be satisfactory for both parties. Both is important, both jobs, existing jobs and extension. You just need to compromise with the environmentalists. Until the last meeting, we thought that we would not be able to arrive at any compromise, but then we said, perhaps we want to arrive at it as a compromise. So these are some political instruments, because politics often is based on problems, and in a process of negotiation we arrived at an idea that these were not outside problems from the outside, but our problems that we are trying to solve. So before, nobody had to be pressurized, but in the very process of the Council's work, we wanted most of the people to identify with the final outcome of the meeting. So we are learning how difficult politics are. It's not an easy thing. We keep learning that another person is not a devil himself, but just another person who has different opinions. And I think that this is what we have learned that is of greatest importance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, the participants. Thank you, the panelists who have listening to in big focus to our conversations. To summarize it a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. Participation serves democracy. It requires various instruments, requires financing, and it requires attention to and sensitivity to public and social issues. That's the experience that we gather in the NGOs. This is being practiced in the civil society. Civil society, they are experts on how the democracy is functioning. So all the participation formats, cooperation with politics, they can be problematic, but we want to have a positive look on that. This is what's serving democracy, the combining, joining together different environments. I'm not only talking about the academia and the civil society. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a nice evening together. And now we want to say thank you to the interpreters as well. Who have been helping us throughout the day. Please leave the headsets on your tables where you sit. Leave them here in the room. Thank you very much.
O, to jest, wiesz co, jest co robić, nie? To jest ciekawe, ale jest co robić. Słucham? To jest zupełnie sprawy, nie?